The signs are everywhere. Not hidden, not subtle, not difficult to find. Wars dominate headlines. Nations grow increasingly unstable. Deception spreads faster than truth. Fear travels across the world in seconds. Every day seems to bring another reason for anxiety, another reason for outrage, another reason to wonder what comes next. And yet, something even more troubling is beginning to emerge. Many Christians know the signs. They can identify prophetic events. They can discuss end times passages. They can recognize the warnings Jesus gave in Matthew 24. But knowledge alone has never guaranteed readiness. That realization should make every believer pause. Because when Jesus told the parable of the 10 virgins, all 10 expected the bridegroom to come. All 10 carried lamps. All 10 appeared prepared. Yet only 5 were actually ready when the moment arrived. The difference was not information. The difference was what they possessed internally. And that raises a deeply uncomfortable question. What if many believers today are focused on recognizing the signs while neglecting the spiritual qualities needed to endure them? The world is changing rapidly. Pressure is increasing. Distractions are multiplying. Temptations are becoming more sophisticated. And beneath all of it, a quiet test is already underway. Not a test of intelligence, not a test of theological knowledge, a test of character, a test of spiritual maturity, a test of what has truly taken root inside the heart. The Apostle Paul warned Timothy that difficult times would come in the last days. He described people becoming lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, ungrateful, and without self-control. Notice something remarkable. Paul's warning was not primarily about governments. It was not about technology. It was not about economics. It was about human character. Because long before societies collapse outwardly, something begins to deteriorate inwardly. And perhaps that is what makes this moment so significant. The greatest challenge of the end times may not simply be surviving external events. It may be developing the spiritual strength required to remain faithful while they unfold. Because what is coming next will not only reveal what Christians believe, it will reveal who they have become. There is a reason fear has become one of the defining emotions of our age. It surrounds people constantly. Economic uncertainty, social division, violence, disease, confusion. No generation in history has consumed more information, yet many have never felt more anxious. The human mind was not designed to carry the weight of endless uncertainty. And that is precisely why one fruit of the Spirit is becoming increasingly rare: peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on favorable circumstances, a deeper peace, a peace that remains steady when the world becomes unstable. Jesus spoke of this peace shortly before his crucifixion. The storm was already approaching. Betrayal was near. Suffering was inevitable. Yet he told his disciples, "My peace I give unto you." Not the world's peace, his peace. That distinction matters. Because the peace of Christ is not produced by safety, it is produced by trust. And trust will be tested. As prophetic events continue to unfold, many believers may find themselves overwhelmed by fear-driven headlines and constant uncertainty. Some will become consumed by anxiety. Others may become paralyzed by worry. But those who cultivate spiritual peace will possess something the world cannot manufacture: a calm confidence rooted in God's sovereignty. Isaiah wrote, "You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you." In an age of distraction, that verse feels more relevant than ever. Because the battle for peace is ultimately a battle for attention. What we constantly focus on,
eventually shapes how we live. And in the years ahead, Christians who learn to guard their hearts and minds may discover that peace is not merely a comfort, it is a weapon against fear, a weapon against despair, a weapon against the spiritual exhaustion that threatens so many today. And peace alone will not be enough, because another challenge is quietly growing stronger, the challenge of self-control. The modern world runs on impulse, instant gratification, instant entertainment, instant reactions, instant opinions. Every temptation is only a click away. Every distraction is available 24 hours a day. Every desire can be fed almost immediately. Yet Scripture consistently teaches something very different. The Christian life has always required discipline, the ability to say no, the ability to wait, the ability to remain faithful even when desires pull in other directions. Paul compared spiritual life to an athlete preparing for competition. Athletes train, they sacrifice, they develop control, not because it feels pleasant, because it produces endurance. And endurance is exactly what many believers may need in the last days. Jesus warned that because lawlessness would increase, the love of many would grow cold. Notice the progression, not persecution, not suffering, lawlessness. A culture that normalizes everything eventually weakens convictions, and weakened convictions create vulnerable believers. This is why self-control is not simply about resisting temptation. It is about preserving spiritual strength. It is about remaining anchored when culture drifts further from biblical truth. The danger is subtle. Few people abandon their faith overnight. More often, they slowly surrender small compromises. One decision, then another, until the distance becomes enormous.
The end times will not merely test what Christians know. They will test what Christians consistently practice. And those who cultivate self-control today may discover that they are developing resilience for challenges they cannot yet see. But endurance requires more than discipline. It requires faithfulness. And that may be one of the most overlooked fruits of all. Faithfulness rarely receives attention. It isn't dramatic. It isn't flashy. It doesn't generate headlines. Yet throughout Scripture, God repeatedly honors those who remain faithful in ordinary circumstances. Daniel remained faithful in Babylon. Joseph remained faithful in prison. Noah remained faithful while the world around him mocked God's warning. Faithfulness often develops long before its importance becomes visible, and that principle carries enormous significance for the prophetic times we are living in. Many Christians expect dramatic spiritual battles. What they may not expect are long seasons of pressure, long seasons of waiting, long seasons where remaining faithful feels difficult. Revelation repeatedly emphasizes endurance, not excitement, not popularity, endurance. The ability to continue following Christ when circumstances become uncomfortable. The ability to remain committed when others compromise. The ability to keep trusting God when immediate answers are unavailable. That kind of faithfulness is not built overnight. It grows slowly, through obedience, through prayer, through perseverance, through daily choices that often go unnoticed. And perhaps that is what makes it so powerful. Because when larger tests arrive, faithful people are not suddenly created, they are revealed. The world may continue changing, the pressure may continue increasing, but faithfulness allows believers to remain steady when everything else feels uncertain. And ultimately, all these qualities point toward one final fruit, the fruit that holds them together, love. Not sentimental love, not cultural definitions of love, biblical love. The kind of love that remains rooted in truth. The kind of love that refuses hatred. The kind of love that remains compassionate without abandoning conviction. Jesus said the world would know his followers by their love. Yet in a time marked by division, outrage, and hostility, genuine love may become increasingly rare. People are growing more polarized, more suspicious, more isolated, more defensive. Many are losing the ability to see others as human beings. But Christians are called to something radically different: to love God fully, to love others faithfully, to reflect Christ even in difficult environments. That calling becomes more important as the world grows darker, because darkness does not overcome darkness. Only light can do that, and light shines brightest when it is surrounded by darkness. As believers watch prophetic signs unfold, it is natural to focus on what is happening around them. But perhaps the more important question is what is happening within them. Are they becoming more peaceful, more self-controlled, more faithful, more loving? Because readiness for the end times is not merely about recognizing prophetic events. It is about becoming the kind of person who can remain faithful through them. The signs may continue increasing, the world may continue changing, but the greatest preparation for what lies ahead is not found in fear. It is found in transformation. Because when the final chapters of history unfold, many people will discover that knowing the signs was never enough. The question was never whether they could identify the season. The question was whether the Spirit had truly prepared them for it.